Does Georgia really run the SEC? Is Will Stein the sauce for Oregon in 2025? And yeah, Alabama really needs to beat Florida State more than Florida State needs to beat Alabama. Let's go. It's Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that Florida State has nothing to lose when they play Alabama in their week one opener? And frankly, I think that is a much more interesting question to me right now than who the king of the SEC is. But I didn't make the rundown today. Today, the rundown is made differently. And I think that's good, right? I think that's good because we're coming off of SEC media days and we're coming off of a lot of coaches having a lot of things to say about just what has transpired basically in the last 8-9 months, from the college football playoff going from the highest ranked group the 5 highest, let me do this again, the conference champions getting the bye, right? Getting elevated to these bye week. There should be no world in which Boise State and Arizona State were getting byes that probably should have gone to other teams. That's the point here, okay? Getting frustrated even thinking about this. That we went to straight seeding is great because it was needed. The more I think about that, the more sense it makes. I didn't like seeing Boise State be the home team against Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl, right? I didn't enjoy that. I think, like you, I thought that Penn State was a better football team, and they bared that out, right? We're also looking at this from a standpoint of, should Alabama have gotten in over Southern Methodist in the at-large bid? And that's getting back to that Alabama question. But one team that did get seated, we think, right where they were supposed to be, is Georgia. Now, did they end up playing the kind of opponents we thought they should play? No, the same thing could be said about Oregon when they finally got to take the field and they looked up and said, damn, we got to play Ohio State again? So I'm looking at this and I'm asking myself, what is it that I know about the SEC? And what I know about the SEC in 2025 is that it belongs to Georgia. It belongs to the Bulldogs. It's belonged to them longer than people would like to realize. And that is mostly because of what Nick Saban had been able to do, and frankly, what he wasn't able to do in 2021 and 2022. I think it is remarkable that we have put this pressure on Kalen DeBoer to succeed Nick Saban while also not looking over there in Athens, Georgia, and seeing what I think is one of the 2 best coaches in the sport, and certainly the best coach in the SEC. I give you some numbers that kind of round this out for me, but Georgia is one of these programs that I investigate from an identity standpoint, right? That is to say, they're going to run the ball and they're going to play defense. No matter who the head coach is, no matter when they take the field, that is they're going to do. That is their MO. In this age of 1,000-yard receivers, 4,000-yard passers, think about 2019 LSU and what they were able to do. Georgia has continued to do it their way. It doesn't mean they don't throw the ball around. Just look at the quarterback's numbers. You'll see 3,000, 3,500-yard passers. What you won't see is 1,000-yard receivers. Like, I beat this one to death, but, I like beating up this one because I think it shows the excellence that Georgia plays with, and that not every brand of football is for you, right? So they've got one 1,000-yard receiver in a single season in their history, Terrence Edwards, 2002. But I can take that step further. The last time that Georgia had a 1,000-yard rusher was 2019. Remember, they've won 2 national championships since then. They've got 2 Heisman winners, right? One of them by name, Herschel Walker. But more than anything else, the number that sticks out to me is 105. That's how many wins Kirby Smart has since he became head coach at Georgia. Now, Georgia was not a bad football program when he took it over, but it wasn't an excellent one either. And Georgia fans be the first to tell you there are a lot of games that we should have won in, say, the Mark Richt era that we did not. And games where we probably could be playing for the SEC championship and winning, or we could be playing for a national championship, doing what Florida was able to do in the early aughts, late aughts with Urban Meyer, 2006, 2008 is what I'm thinking about. Now, think about Kalen DeBoer's claim to fame before he got to Bama. It was his outstanding win-loss record. It's a dude that went 104 and what is it, 104-3, right? At what level, right? At what level? Excuse me, 104-12, not 104-3. I'm looking at my notes now. 104-12, where Kirby Smart in the last, basically since getting to Georgia, going 105-19 is more impressive to me because you did it all at Georgia. Kalen DeBoer doing this at, Sioux City. Okay. Doing this at Washington, sure. Making a national title game, absolutely. Excellent. Win the Pac-12, yes, absolutely. Excellent. Putting out a Heisman finalist in Michael Penix Jr., excellent. Rome Odunze, first-round draft pick, excellent. But while we're looking at Bama going 9-4, going, I don't know about this, Kirby Smart went into Austin, Texas, played what we thought was the best team in the SEC, and gave them the what for and the how now. Then they did it again in the SEC championship, and they did it with the backup quarterback because the defense is just that strong. So I wrote a column earlier this week about Georgia and Kirby Smart and why I know that they are kings in the SEC and every road runs through Sanford. And it is in large part because that 9-year run that he had as defensive coordinator for Nick Saban is the blueprint for which he uses to build and continue to build at Georgia, even as we've had changes that he has coached through, from the implementation of the transfer portal to the advent of immediate eligibility in FBS to the advent of name, image, and likeness and paying players to revenue sharing that we're experiencing now. The blueprint he's working is the one that I think everybody else is going to have to if they plan to compete at the level that Georgia competes at. And that is, you recruit the hell out of them after you evaluate who can help you. And then you play everybody and you play them as much as you can. So one of the things that most of the players at Georgia know when they get there, you're going to play significant football snaps. You're not going to play as many as some other starters at other places, but you're going to play a lot. And because you play a lot, you are fresh toward the end. We rotate in, and players get to do the one thing that they showed up in Georgia to do, which is play football, right? It's one of the reasons why we look up and these Georgia football players getting drafted in the first round don't have the stats that many people expect them to have as first-round draft picks. But if you look at their production on the field and you look at how they play the game, it's very clear that Kirby Smart has developed the hell out of this team. They practice a lot, they play a lot. And he has said, if you want to get to the NFL and you want to be a first-round draft pick, what the NFL has told college football players is stay there as long as you need to, because you're going to get practices and development that you're not going to get at the NFL. At the NFL, you got to be able to go right away. There's still another level you can reach if you're that kind of elite player. But for the most part, you're going to have it put together by the time you get there, especially if you're first round pick. They expect you to start. They expect you to pick it up. They expect to not have to teach you much because they don't want to. They are drafting you based on what you did over there. So the practices that you have in college are much more valuable than the practices that you have in the NFL. They don't like to hit. They don't hit a lot. The impetus is on keeping everybody healthy enough to play the games, because in the NFL, you only get paid during those, weeks that you play games. It's an interesting system, right? So if you don't play, you don't get no check, or you need to learn to save your money, right? Both of those things are important, but I think saving the money thing is something that you either learn early or you don't learn at all, as we got a lot of adults that are trying to spend these kids' money or tell them what to do with their money. But I wanted to round this out because Texas is picked to win the SEC with Arch Manning at quarterback. And as many detractors for Arch Manning have told you, they don't see it, right? Or they haven't seen enough of it. 2 starts against ULM and Mississippi State does not make an SEC championship quarterback. Cool, got it. And Arch, to his credit, says, I don't deserve all this attention that I'm getting. I really haven't done much of anything except dress like a Kappa Sig at media days. I guess that can't be helped, right? I guess that can't be helped. But if you're talking about winning at a high level and you're talking about doing this for championships, you're talking about Georgia football. You're not really talking about Texas just yet, even as Texas has won the Big 12 championship. Let Oklahoma tell you what winning a bunch of Big 12 championships is worth in the SEC. That said, we do expect Georgia and Texas to be right back there at the end of this. And this is going to be a very cool game when Texas got to go to Sanford. All roads go to Sanford. Last point on this is the last time that Georgia lost a home game at Sanford was 2019, South Carolina, jacked for the hedges. You know who the head coach was then? It's Will Muschamp. He's been on staff at Georgia for the last 5 years, and he's been calling the defense for multiple years. It takes a lot to go into Sanford and get a W. If Texas can do that, then we can have that conversation. But for now, the Kings in the SEC are the Georgia Bulldogs. So let's have ourselves a conversation now about Alabama, Florida State, week 1. This one got a lot more spicy, got spicier last month when Tommy Castellanos told Pete Nakos at On3 he can't wait to play Alabama. He's always wanted to play Alabama. And since he transferred from Boston College to Florida State, he's been aching to play Alabama. And he is saying, look, every team that I've played on starts fast. We get on the board quickly, and we don't let up. Nick Saban ain't there to save them anymore. Of course, Alabama fans heard this, and Alabama players heard this. Deontay Lawson heard this. Isaiah Horton heard this. Caden Proctor heard this. And I hope the Alabama staff heard this, because if I'm the defensive coordinator, all I'm going to do is put up big pictures of Tommy Castellanos going, are you going to let him talk to you about like this? Are you going to let him talk to you this way? Are we not going to handle our business when it comes time to handle our business? I've never seen a quarterback be so audacious as to put himself out there like that, because your offensive line, they just look back at you and go, dog, why you got to make this harder than it already is? Like, it ain't as if we're not going to have to be blocking an Alabama defensive line to protect you. And Tommy Castellanos ain't a dude to just stand back there in the pocket. He's going to be running for his life a couple of times of his own accord, because that's part of the game here. Now, he played a little bit for Gus Malzahn. People are fond of saying so, and that might matter. But because Florida State was so garbage, to use that French term, last year, we don't really know just how good they plan to be. Well, I guess we know how good they plan to be. We don't know how good they're going to be, right? I look at this and I say, if Florida State loses this game, it doesn't make or break their season like it did last year. Last year, when they lost to Georgia Tech, we were all looking around like, uh-oh. And by the time we figured out that uh-oh was way worse than uh-oh, Memphis had got him for the bag, right? You go 2-10 last year. You blow up the staff. You get a new offensive coordinator, new defense coordinator. You go back to your mentor. And Gus Malzahn was offensive coordinator at Tulsa when Mike Norvell was a GA. And I remember this because I was in school at Tulsa when this is going down. So the idea of Mike Norvell being the boss of Gus Malzahn is kind of wild to me, but it worked. You know, one dude was great wide receiver at Central Arkansas. One dude was one of the greatest high school football coaches Arkansas has ever produced, Gus Malzahn. And you're going to have dudes, right? You lost a lot, but you're going to have dudes. I think Squirrel White is going to help them tremendously stretching the field. And we know what Gus likes to do. He likes to run the football and throw it deep. Throw it deep, son. Throw it deep. And if you can run the football well, you ought to be okay. Now, what did them in last year at Central Florida is KJ Jefferson put the ball on the floor. But between, you know, your run game and your quarterback, your +1 game, and your tailbacks, they got that, right? They're going to find their RJ Harvey. Maybe it's Roy Dell. Maybe not. But I don't really believe that the run game is going to be the make or break part of Florida State's game against Alabama. I believe it's going to be Alabama's ability to run their offense against Tony White's scheme. Ty Simpson is saying all the right things, doing the anti-Tommy Castellanos out there, but he also is very clear about who they're playing for. And I think as we continue to talk about this, and I did the Georgia segment before this, I wonder, are we harping on Kalen DeBoer or are they harping on Kalen DeBoer? Because the idea that you would need to continue to tell us that Nick Saban is no longer the head coach of Alabama Crimson Tide some 18, 19 months after he retired ain't exactly screaming confidence, right? I realize that nobody has had a mark on that program as big since Barrett Bryant, but it ain't as if y'all didn't go 9-4 last year, which is respectable, just not by Bama standards, especially when you throw in losses to Vanderbilt and a loss to a bad Oklahoma, right? A 6-7 Oklahoma. The Tennessee loss, I think people could live with, but it could just be like it was last year for them. Like they could get off to a 4-0 start and still not be that good down the stretch. Now, Ty Simpson takes better care of the football, and Ty Simpson has a better relationship with Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton, Cole Adams, when you hold on to the ball, you're going to be all right. You're going to be just fine. Jam Miller's going to be able to run the ball. It's going to be good. I can't wait to see what Richard Young can do. I think Deontay Lawson is due. I think Damani Jackson is a great cornerback. But you got to put it together. However, you can ratchet up the heat underneath your seat with a loss to Florida State. That's not going to be a top 25 team when you play them, unlike last year when they were top 10 for some, top 5 for me. Yo, dog, what? They're going to be a team that has a lot to prove, and they're playing in the ACC. They know that if they win the ACC championship, they're going to be fine. People might look at that Alabama loss, depending on what Alabama does, and make some judgments. But if they win the ACC championship, they're getting in the playoff. Are they going to get in as a top 5 seed? Probably not if Alabama's not that good, but it won't matter, right? Because you win a Power 4 conference championship, you know what you're going to be about. You make it to a Power 4 conference championship, you're probably going to get in. That's not how I'm looking at Florida State this year. How I'm looking at Florida State this year has more to do with just how good they look when they play competition that they should beat. When you look at their schedule and you see Bama on it, you go, okay, we would love to win this game. But if you look at the rest of the schedule and you ask questions up and down it, that's not boding well. Like we should not be able to look at Florida State's schedule and circle more than 2 losses in any given year. They've shown that during the Bobby Bowden era, during the Jimbo Fisher era, and frankly, up until last year in the Mike Norvell era. Just last year happened to be the worst season that Florida State football had played basically since it started playing Division I football. It's a long time ago. It's been real hard for you to look back at them and say, hey, is this the worst team that we've seen since the 70s? Yeah, probably. You can make an argument for the 50s, depending on how you want to do the fuzzy math of FBS, Power 4, ACC, SMU coming in right away and running straight through the ACC into the ACC championship game, doing enough during the regular season. And apparently in that loss to Clemson to justify the selection committee putting them in there. I'm also getting around to this idea that we should probably eliminate the selection committee, but I also understand that eliminating the selection committee leaves it up to this 4 + 4 + 2 + 2 + 1 + 1 format that I think everybody kind of hates. And also takes some of the fun of being a human being out of this. Like the one time that we thought they got it wrong was Florida State goes undefeated. They lose Jordan Travis to injury, and they get bumped for Nick Saban in Alabama in the last 14 playoff. Had Nick Saban been Kalen DeBoer that year, are we sure that Florida State gets bumped? No. Your job is to make sure that you can win that argument this year. That's what you're thinking about if you are Florida State. I think a resounding win against Alabama would do a lot for that, but I'm more interested to find out what Alabama fans are going to think if they lose this game, even if it's close to Florida State, because you know that you got to play better teams than Florida State the rest of the way. And that's just the way it is. The SEC is just that much stronger. There's not an easy schedule in the SEC. If anything, there's more difficult schedules in the SEC, and that is their argument. We're playing 8 conference games as opposed to 9 like everybody else. That's cyclical, though. I realize that the SEC has been a dominant conference for 20 years, but you got to also remember that when I was a child, Nobody in the Big 12, especially as we got to 98, 99, was afraid of an SEC team. If anything, it was, how are you going to play against Miami? How are you going to play against Florida State? How are you going to play against Nebraska, Texas? Those were the teams that you feared. Here of late, we got to see that the Southeast cares more about its college football than any other region in this country. And that's bearing out, right? That's why you've got, the last two conference national champions come from the Big Ten, but they also come from the two programs that care the most about football above the Mason-Dixon line, Ohio State and Michigan. Again, that bears out in the championships that you win. Florida State is going to have to try to put together a better season than Florida, which is going to be difficult because DJ Lagway makes them a playoff team. They're undefeated at Florida when DJ Lagway starts and finishes the game, 6-0. That's not insignificant, right? That's a nice sample size. Miami expects to be there once again at the end with Carson Beck at quarterback. It's just, is Mario Cristobal going to get out of the way, get in the way, or is Bert Auburn going to miss a field goal that he absolutely should make? Yeah, that's where he went when Texas said, "Hey, man, kick rocks. We're bringing in Macy Shipley for your job. We don't need you no more." I need this year to be the magic year for Kalen DeBoer. Otherwise, I don't know how much longer he's going to get to keep that job. And at that point, do you back up the Brinks truck and do you beg Dabo Swinney to come to Alabama to save you? That would be interesting. But it could be just what it was with Billy Napier last year. It could be simply you get off to a slow start and you finish strong, and that earns you another year with people knowing that you still got a Ty Simpson, a Keelan Russell back there, that you can make this thing go. And we're going to try to keep this together because we know that you with Ryan Grubb changes the math on this, or so we think. We're going to find out just how important Ryan Grubb is to the operation this year too. Very interesting matchup, one that I am expecting to really set a tone for how we feel about both Florida State and Alabama the rest of the way, but more Alabama than Florida State. Also, want to have this big conversation about probably the offensive coordinator that we haven't spent the most enough time talking about nationally. I'm sure in Eugene, you feel some kind of way about that. Let's talk about Will Stein. Let's talk about Oregon's wonderkin offensive coordinator. Let's talk about the dude that came out of Texas to take over the job that Kenny Dillingham had been doing so well and has been doing it better than Kenny Dillingham did. Okay, so we get Dan Lanning in. We get Bo Nix in. It works. Kenny Dillingham gets an offer to go coach at our Arizona State, and he takes it. And then Dan Lanning goes and makes one of the smartest offensive coordinator hires that we have seen since Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma. I mean that, all right? Will Stein's 35 years old, okay? He's playing quarterback at Louisville in 2012. Wasn't that long ago. Gets to Oregon and has to pick up and make it go after a 10-win season with a quarterback in Bo Nix who had a very tight relationship with the last offensive coordinator and try to make it work. And what did he do? He turned out a 4,000-yard passer with 45 TDs and a run game that produces 1,000-yard rusher, gets the most out of Troy Franklin, and gets the most out of Tez Johnson, and continues to do that the next year. So since Will Stein arrived, okay, Oregon is 25-3. They won the Big Ten championship, and they played in 2 New Year's Six bowl games. Matter of fact, the knock is they haven't won one. That's the knock, right? Excuse me. Not they haven't won one. They haven't won a college football playoff game in New Year's Six bowl. But that's going to change. It's going to change. I think as I'm looking at a guy who's producing 3,500-yard passer back-to-back years, 30 TDs back-to-back years, more than 73% of passes completed by both his quarterbacks. Actually, the average is closer to 75 because Bo Nix had a godlike year of 77%, and Dylan Gabriel had a damn great year of about 73%. So there's that. Then you're talking about having a 1,000-yard rusher, again, Bucky Irving. I'm thinking about Jordan James. And I expect Noah Whittington or Mekhi Hughes to be that guy this year. One of those two guys, probably Noah Whittington, been in the system. It's also his turn more than anything else. And I don't think we talk more about the passing attack than we should, because it's really not about pushing the ball down the field. It is about taking these high percentage throws when they are there and doing a great job of getting in and out of bad plays. Like Dylan Gabriel was elite at this. He was really good at seeing where the leverage was for the play. And if they beat in the pre-snap, he would get them out of it, get them into something they could work with. The only time I saw him confused was when they got destroyed by Ohio State in the Rose Bowl last year. I don't think that's going to happen again in the way that it happened, but I'm sure that Dante Moore was coached up on this. And that's really what I think is the thing we're talking about most with Will Stein. He's done this with two different quarterbacks. This is his third quarterback in as many years. The system works, and he works the system. They identify the strengths of each one of their quarterbacks, and they play to them. And if you look at the early reports on Dante Moore as a high school player, you'll see very high floor, excellent with the ball, doesn't make poor decisions. Now, that got tested when he played for Chip Kelly at UCLA, but that was absolutely the move. Like, I don't like how it went, but you can see, give Dante Moore an opportunity to develop and build his confidence, and he can be as good as any quarterback in the country. And he might have to be, honestly, because he's going to be without Evan Stewart at least to start the season, we think, from all of the season. That's going to give another opportunity to new guys. Like Tez Johnson's not there anymore. Even though we've seen back-to-back years of 80 catches or more for one wide receiver, will that receiver be Gary Bryant? Will that receiver be Malik Benson? Or will that receiver be DeCorian Moore? I don't think it's going to be DeCorian Moore unless DeCorian Moore shows himself to be something like Jeremiah Smith. And I think the good Lord only made one of those. But if you're looking for somebody who could be as close, it's him. Like, I think DeCorian Moore can be every bit the player that Ryan Williams was last year. A guy with, over 800 yards receiving, about 40-plus catches, averaging about 18, 19 yards per catch, maybe get to double-digit TDs, depending on where they put him. But when you hear the wide receivers talk about him, when you hear Austin Novosad talk about him, they say versatility, explosive, understands the game, smart about the game, can play all the wide receiver positions from X to Y to Z to A. He knows what everybody's going to do. He knows how to do it. That means he's probably going to get into the game quicker than you might think. Also, Oregon has benefited this year from what I think is a fall forward and win 10 game schedule. Like, they don't have anybody tough to play except Penn State. Indiana comes to them. The toughest away game I think they got, honestly, outside of Penn State is flying to Rutgers, because that's going to be quite literally a cross-country trip, and you're traveling across 3 time zones to get there, right? Then you're going to play that game whenever you play that game. I'm also curious to find out how aggressive they stay, because that's been a hallmark of Dan Lanning. He's going to go for it on 4th down. He's going to pressure you. He's going to give his guys a chance to go win it, and it might not work, right? We saw that Washington and Oregon a couple years ago. It didn't work. But as he said, I'm a big boy. I understand the decisions that I make, and I'm making the decisions that I think are best for the team. It's one of the things we like about Dan Lanning is he's not hiding behind anything or anybody. He's going to take whatever it is coming, and he's going to deal with it. It's easy to like a football coach like that. My favorite story to tell about Dan Lanning is going to Pac-12 Media Days, which is a relic. But usually you have coaches and players that are coming through individual rooms to talk to Big Ten Network, Fox Sports, ESPN, whatever. And they've got handlers, right? There's an SID, there's an assistant SID, there's a student, whatever, somebody beside them to help them prep for what they might get asked about in this next room. Dan Lanning, head coach at University of Oregon, had no such handler. He had the schedule in his jacket pocket where he was supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And he walked up, said, "You guys ready for me?" And you say, "Yeah." He sits down, said, "Let's go. Let's get into it." I love that, because that's also saying, I'm here right now. I'm ready to go. You show me what it is that you want me to do, and I'll execute. which is exactly what he asked his football team to do. So you add to, a new quarterback, and you got a new body in the running back room, and you're going to lose, I think, your number one at wide receiver, but you come back with depth, right? Isaiah World, we think, is going to be a top 10 talent if he plays to his ability as an offensive tackle at Oregon. Mateo Uiagalelei is great on that edge. Dylan Thieneman is going to be a safety that Ducks fans fall in love with. I love his game. And then they're going to be there at the end once again. And this time, it's not going to be about winning the Big Ten championship. It's going to be about winning the national championship, because Oregon is on the Texas program. They're trying to win it all. Can they win it all with a first-year quarterback like Texas? I think so. I think the more bites at this apple you get, the more opportunities, the better off your chances of winning. See this with Michigan, who makes the playoff, gets beat by Georgia, makes the playoff again, gets beat by Texas Christian, makes the playoff again, wins the national championship. It's usually how these things go. It's one of the other reasons why we're so bullish on Texas. They made the playoff back-to-back years, and in each year they learned something. I mean, not for nothing, but they got beat by the national title runner-up in 2023, and they got beat by the national champ in 2024. If they get the bracket set and they can get to the championship game, I don't think anybody's going to bet against Steve Sarkisian being able to big game that, right? Because we've seen him call a great game in a national championship setting as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. All that's going to work. What's going to be more interesting to me is if Will Stein and Oregon go win 10, 11 games once again, or 12, or 13, or 15, is he still going to be an offensive coordinator at Oregon the next year? Doesn't seem like he's in any hurry. Seems like he's waiting on one job to open up. And being from Texas, I got an idea of what that job is, and it ain't likely to open up soon. However, somebody somewhere is going to try to get him to take over their football team pretty quick, fast, and in a hurry. And as a 36-year-old head coach who is an offensive wonderkin, that could be great, right? I say 36 because next year. But goodness me, I'm excited about this college football season. I hope you are too. As you can see, it's a little bit of a new format that we're trying out here. You might like it. If you don't, let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, thanks so much for doing that. Leave a 5-star review. If you are watching on the channel, thanks so much for doing that. Like and subscribe, right? Let me know what it is that you guys would like to hear us talk about. We're going to do some mailbag episodes. I owe everybody stickers. They are going in the mail steadily now. Going to pay up on all of that before the month ends. And my birthday is coming up on July 31st. So if there's some way we can get to 500 ratings on Apple and get 200 ratings on Spotify, that would be quite the happy birthday for your mans. Until then, we will see y'all next time. Take it easy. Love y'all. Deuces.